We're on to our 15th rank Week 17 matchup. Could it really include the Super Bowl champions? Stay tuned. Welcome to Summer School, Club Fantasy's best ball podcast streaming exclusively on YouTube. I am your host, Austin Amandolia. Here with me, as always, is Matt Record. And this is a CRAM session focused on Week 17 matchups. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you get coverage of every single game that happens in Week 17. We are discussing our 15th ranked game and how you should target this matchup in best ball. And this matchup involves the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just sounds like it could be a garbage matchup, frankly.
It's in Pittsburgh, so you get the weather, right? And they have such a great defense. Like, it's going to be gross. Let's get to those numbers.
Yeah, it could be so gross. And you know what? The betting lines agree. So right now, the over-under for this matchup is at 42.5, ranked 15th out of all 16 games happening this week. Kansas City is favored by 4 points. And the other thing about these teams that is interesting to me, they do have slightly more favorable playoff matchups outside of Week 17. So that gets into a little bit of what I want to actually talk about as we reference this matchup. They have 181 points of their combined total between their Week 15 and 16 matchups, which ranks 9th out of all 16 games. Notably, the ADP of their first player is round 4. This is one of 3 matchups where no player is being drafted ahead of the 4th round, which is wild given the fact that it involves Kansas City Chiefs. As Matt mentioned, it's outdoors on Christmas. So that has all sorts of reasons to go poorly, especially because Christmas is on a Wednesday this year, and there's going to be short rest for these teams. And I have ranked this at a 4.3 out of 10. So we're going to start with the positives. Matt, tell me how this matchup goes well for fantasy football.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different ways. So obviously the studs on Kansas City just be who they are, right? So Pat Mahomes just does Pat Mahomes things and has a great day. He throws to Travis Kelce. You have Pan to Taylor Swift, wearing her Kansas City Chiefs Christmas hat. The weather cooperates in Pittsburgh. So yeah, the studs, or even if it doesn't, Isaiah Pacheco just runs all over that defense. That's great. From the Pittsburgh side, it's harder to know, like, who the heck's going to be the quarterback at that time. We don't know, and we'll get to those ADPs later for them. But I suppose Najee Harris, just eats through the Chiefs defense, and then we get some, Pat Freiermuth touchdowns as we get, closer to the red zone. But it's going to be gross. It's going to be a gross game.
Yeah, I think so too. And I agree with those best case scenarios. I think also best case scenario is that Kansas City's defense takes a step back this year. I think that's honestly one of the best ways that this game has to turn into a shootout. But other than that, I mean, it's going to depend a bit on the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive side of the matchup, just because of the fact that Kansas City, they could easily run away with this matchup. But now tell me, how could this matchup go poorly? Which I think there's many ways it could go poorly, but what do you think? What is the negative story on this matchup?
Yeah, the negative way is both defenses are as advertised and are great defenses. It's gross weather, so it turns into a run the ball, sort of control the clock sort of game, which doesn't mean there's not value, but you would not be scoring nearly as many points as if we were just throwing all over the place and being high scoring.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think too, like the fact that Mike Tomlin is on the field for this one, I could see him saying, "I'm not putting the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands. Are you kidding me? I'm not dumb." And so he will just have Arthur Smith run Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren 20 times a piece and keep it slow, which honestly is a very good strategy when playing against Kansas City. So I share those current concerns as well, but that doesn't mean we're avoiding this matchup altogether. We still might want to stack. We still might want to correlate some of the players on this team. Matt, how are you approaching this when you're drafting players from this matchup? What are your favorite stacks to target?
Sure. I mean, I like the classic ones, like give me Kelce and Mahomes if I can. With where their ADP is at, you have to kind of have a very specific draft slot to be able to make that happen. But obviously Mahomes, doesn't matter who he's throwing to, he's still a great quarterback. He's going off the board at QB4, which is pretty nice. You don't feel bad ending up with the best quarterback in the world right now. Other than that, I mean, I do like Pacheco as well, where he's going off at RB11. Not really a stack or correlation, but like I like having the really good running back on a team that will be able to move the ball quite a bit. Do you have anyone from the Steelers you like?
Yes, I do. Unfortunately, so I agree. I'm sticking. I do like to stick with the Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes on the Kansas City side. I think I will sprinkle some of the other receivers in there, but I don't love their ADP. They're all going a little bit high for me, so I probably will actually skip them more than I won't. But on the Pittsburgh side, there are two players I like. I think if we're sticking strictly to this idea that you do Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, you cannot get George Pickens just because of the ADP landscape. It's too hard. They're too close together. Maybe you get lucky once or twice, but it's probably not going to happen. So instead, I honestly like to do the bring back with Jalen Warren. I also like to sprinkle some Najee Harris in there, but I think I'm going a little bit Jalen Warren over Najee Harris because he's cheaper. He does have a little bit more pass game utilization, but I'll really either of the running backs. It's ambiguous enough that they could both carry the load. So those are some of our stacks and correlations we are targeting. What about value? What do you think the best value at ADP is in this matchup?
I mean, honestly, it's I mean, Pat Fryermuth, I think at tight end 14 is good. Whoever's going to be throwing it, they want to want a safety net. I'm not going to rely on him with my tight end 1, but I think that's a pretty decent value. And really, other than that, I mean, it's the quarterbacks for Pittsburgh. Like if you're a gambling man or woman, Wilson's going off the board at QB 31, and Justin Fields is going off the board at QB 32. Literally the last two QBs, which means someone's not being drafted who's actually going to be a starting quarterback in the top 32 QBs. So that's fun. So again, it could be either one of these people. Like Russell Wilson, he's obviously getting up there, but the Steelers have some pretty decent offensive weapons that he can throw to, right? Now, again, for this game, will Justin Fields take over? Like, who knows, right? I am in the camp that it's Russell Wilson's job. I think he's going to be fine. That defense is good enough that they're going to be in games and winning. So I don't think, other than an injury, Justin Fields will take over. So yeah, if I'm at like the very, very end and I'm just sitting there looking for my third QB, why not just take a flyer in Russell Wilson?
Yeah, our brains are in a very similar place on that. I was going to go with Justin Fields because I just like the upside there.
Sure.
A little bit over Russell Wilson.
He's returning kicks, right? That's what we hear.
Oh boy, if he does return kicks, that would be wild. I think though I'll take it a different direction just so we're not saying the same thing. I'll go with Travis Kelce because it's Travis Kelce and he's going in the 4th round. He's not the first tight end coming off of the board. There are times where I've seen Trey McBride go ahead of him. And look, say what you will about snap counts, about how often he's going to be on the field. Underdog Fantasy is a half PPR website. It is not as heavily weighted towards players that pass or catch a bunch of passes the way that DraftKings is. It is weighted towards players who score a bunch of touchdowns. And I still think if you get into the red zone, Patrick Mahomes is going to be looking to either run the ball with Isaiah Pacheco or get it to Travis Kelce. Those are going to be his top 2 priorities every single time. So I will take the touchdown upside and the value that I'm getting on Travis Kelce this year. So those are our value plays. Now, after that, we're going to talk about our traps. These are players that we think are a little bit too popular. They're players that we're avoiding. And I added this from the last episode. So if you watched our first one, you know this wasn't in here because I was inspired by a particular player in this matchup. And for me, I think there's one specific player that's the epitome of this, but I think it applies to all of the Kansas City receivers. I think they're all traps, but I think Hollywood Brown is the biggest trap of them all, being drafted as the wide receiver 1 in this receiving room, ahead of Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. I can't do it. I can't hit that button ever. It's too much. It's too expensive. I've somehow managed to get him in some DraftKings best ball only because he ends up being my 4th receiver there. Like the ADP landscape is just different. But on Underdog, I don't feel good with Hollywood Brown. I don't feel like I'm certain he's going to get the touchdowns. I think it's going to be Pacheco. It's going to be Kelce. And we've been trying to figure out the best receiver in that Kansas City offense since Tyreek Hill left. I think it might end up being Rashee Rice once he returns from suspension. Like, I don't think Marquise Brown is going to be a sustainable option for best ball this year. What about you, Matt? Do you think there are any traps in this matchup?
No, I think you nailed it. Yeah, the Chiefs don't care about our fantasy sports. They want to win games, and what that means is Mahomes is going to spread the ball to a bunch of different people, right? And banking on one of them being the guy, it's kind of tough, especially at that ADP. I think my biggest trap is kind of a higher level thing than any specific players here. Just don't avoid Kelsey and Mahomes because they're in this 15th ranked matchup, right?
Yeah.
For this week 17. Yes. Now, if you do want to factor in some of that for Pittsburgh, I would not blame you. But just a reminder that we're just trying. You have to get there first, so don't fade the Chiefs because of this. But just know that if you do happen to make it to the finals, this is a not great matchup.
Yeah, I will say this many times throughout all of these episodes. It's not that I'm not drafting any of these players. I will draft these players depending on the situation, and I've drafted them several times already. It's just being cognizant of what role are they playing in your overall tournament strategy. But from there, I want to talk last about biggest question marks, and I think I might know yours, Matt. What is your biggest question mark about this matchup?
Weather, I guess, and which QB the Steelers will have, because that changes the offense dramatically if you have a pocket passer versus someone that can run, right? Like that, and yeah, I suppose just the Chiefs wide receiver room. Like there's just too much variability there for me to really feel, like you said, like just mimicking you, to really feel comfortable trusting any of those wide receivers.
Yeah, I think those are really good, and I think honestly, there's a really good chance that I also think that a question I have is like, how much is the short schedule going to impact these teams? Like we know, like the lack of rest can cause issues for teams. They're going to have like 4 days in between a Saturday game and this game, so I'm also I'm not getting overly reliant on this matchup because of that. Again, I'm still going to pick these players, just not too much. My other big question mark is what's going to happen with the Pittsburgh running back room. Is it going to be a 50-50 split? How's Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin going to handle that? I think these are all reasons to have where there's some value to be had in these situations, but they're questions that we need to answer as we're taking stances on this matchup. Some other teams to target. So Kansas City plays Cleveland and Houston in weeks 15 and 16, and Pittsburgh plays Philadelphia and Baltimore in weeks 15 and 16. I think one thing to point out about this is that Baltimore and Houston play each other in week 17. And so I think that's one reason you might end up with some Pittsburgh, Kansas City correlation is they play those two teams in week 16, who then play each other in week 17. You can kind of have a nice little triangle square. I guess that's a square technically. You can have a nice little segment of teams there that you're targeting all together who play each other during the best ball playoffs. But that is going to be all for this week. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Look out for our next episode where we break down our 14th favorite matchup. And again, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You're just going to have to tune back in. But for Matt Record, I'm Austin Amandolia. This has been Summer School. And until next time, remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football, and best ball wins money. Catch you next time.